right, real talks or rail talks.
Something that men really need to consider these days is keeping receipts. Keep those text messages, keep the voice notes, keep the emails, whatever receipts you have, keep them because you don't know if you're going to need them in the future.
So many guys are apprehensive to game or any sort of thinking or strategizing when it comes to these types of things. Ask your average guy, of course. He can't even stand going down to the government building in whatever country you live in just to hand in some stupid piece of paper to declare something or whatever. Guys also hate the idea of playing the game, so why would they store all of these things? Even though it's technically the right thing to do. A lot of guys can't even overcome the shame wall of a prenup and they just cave because they don't want to risk their woman being angry with the idea of a prenup, even though it's completely logical and has no actual effect on her whatsoever. Welcome to a feminine world.
Women these days are crazy. Look at the Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively situation. If he wouldn't have kept his text messages, he would have been screwed. Thank God he kept the receipts, and that's what men need to do these days to protect themselves. So
we hear quite often that we should believe anything a woman says, but I'd be willing to bet that they lie more than we do. The difference here, of course, is they're completely absorbed into the lie where they lie to themselves and then they lie to you as well, so it appears to be the truth even to their own mind. A lot of people would criticize me for this statement and say that guys do the same thing, but here's the problem. Guys are forced into being exposed to the reality of how the world works. Whether it's through rejection, getting burned by people, or maybe it's through getting a job when you're really young and there's this constant standard that you need to earn and perform at all times. If you don't, what you realize pretty quickly is that nobody cares about you.
Make sure that you don't delete those messages because you don't know if you're going to need them in the future. And this goes for any ordinary man. Women these days will take things out of context. And so now men have to protect themselves, keep the receipts. Hopefully you won't have to use them, but at least this way you're able to defend yourselves if there's a false allegation. So make sure you keep receipts.
This is because we don't value objective truth in society anymore. What we value is subjective truth, but then we lie to ourselves and pretend that that is objective truth, or that there is no such thing as objective truth. When you argue for something, it's always your perspective, not necessarily the truth. Because of this, who's to say what's real or not real anymore? Anything can be real, just like in your wildest fantasy. If you can imagine it, you can make it real, right? I found this to be true in a lot of my own personal dealings with women. It's a form of what I call soft control. They're not going to tell you directly what they're doing and what their intent is. Instead, they're going to wrap it up in a fantasy and then expect you to buy into their fantasy, and if you don't, you're in trouble. To avoid the nuisance of the negative emotions, what you'll typically do is just avoid the topic altogether, and as a result, she's exercised soft control on you. Guys don't want to play the game, they don't want to think about it, and that is where the death by 1,000 paper cuts begins. This process happens over and over and over again right under your nose, and you have no idea it's going on until you wake up one day and your girl doesn't love you anymore. What was true at one time is no longer true right now, and that's the essence of subjective reality. What I feel now is true now. What I feel tomorrow will be true tomorrow. This is why this woman is 100% correct and you must keep your receipts. Girls will deny yesterday being true, not necessarily out of nefarious purposes, but because their feelings have completely changed and they cannot even envision a world where yesterday was even true. It can't be possible that I love this man considering how icky I feel today. This is also why you gotta be careful even with the way you text women. Always send messages to girls with the idea that everybody else is going to see it. Even when you're sending seductive messages, make sure that if someone else sees it, it doesn't appear to be too icky. Basically, don't get into hypergraphic details about what you would do to her. Simply label it as, I have a couple ideas of my own, but we'll see what happens. That way, when someone is reading it from the outside, you can't be incriminated. I know for a lot of you listening, you're probably thinking to yourself, nah, I'm not going to bother. I don't want to incriminate myself at all. Fair enough. This is for those guys. I understand it's really tough these days, but still want to do the best they can to do something about it. If you like this video, like and subscribe. Don't forget to check out Modern Dating Mastery in the description below.